The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to the Blueprint.
Why they actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's forming a phonic.
Appreciate it. You know my brother.
My God.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. Nice,
That's
brother.
big time.
I am honored to be having this conversation with you today. For those of you who don't know, this is Anthony Ianni, my college teammate. Motivational speaker, author, and he's done it all through the lens of autism. Just so everyone else know your journey once the ball stopped bouncing at Michigan State.
So basically, like, I got a phone call from Brian Calley, who was our lieutenant governor at the time, and his office called my parents' house and said, hey, would Anthony be interested in keynoting an autism gala in Detroit? And of course, this is when we were in the tournament, and I was like, let me wait till we're done, because I would like to focus on getting to the Final Four before I make any decisions. So after we had lost to Louisville, I told my mom, I said, hey, call up the lieutenant governor's office, tell him I'm in. And so I did like a 9-10 minute speech, got a great response to it, great ovation to it. After I gave my speech, you know, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I told her, I said, you know, I think I know what I'm meant to do in my life. And when she asked me, you know, what do you mean? I said, well, let me ask you this, like, other than Temple Grandin, who's one of the most famous individuals in the world with autism, I said, can you name me somebody else in the autism community like that, who people in that community look up to as a role model, as an inspiration, as an icon? And she couldn't name anybody, and that's when I said to her, you know what, I'm gonna go be that person.
Every person that doubted me, that was just like throwing fuel on my fire.
And then you go on to give speeches all over. You become a motivational speaker. You go on to write a book. Share with us the name of your book, what we can find in the book, and just what was that journey like in writing that book as well.
So the book is titled Centered Autism Basketball One Athlete's Dreams, and it's basically about my entire life story, like days leading up to the diagnosis itself, and basically my journey throughout elementary school, middle school, my basketball days in high school, basketball days at Grand Valley State and at Michigan State. Because a lot of people day-to-day look at me and kind of go, and you may have been the same way at first, was, you know, how does Anthony have autism? Like, I don't see it, I don't recognize it. So they get to see and like hear about those descriptions of me being on the autism spectrum in that book.
And one of the things that I've learned since educating myself when I first found out that you were on the autism spectrum was there are several different types of autism. You have the autism spectrum. Can you help me better understand exactly what you were diagnosed?
Right. So I was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, or PDD-NOS for short. So it's kind of like almost along the same lines as Asperger's, but it's very high functioning autism. My biggest weakness is, as you know, is the language aspect of things. So growing up, I had a very tough time in school, even to this day, understanding different nouns, different verbs, idioms. Like if you had told, if the 5-year-old me was sitting right here and it was raining really hard outside here in the Bay, and you go, oh guys, look, it's raining cats and dogs outside. The 5-year-old me would have legit ran down these stairs out that exit door, actually thinking a cat or a dog was going to fall from the sky. And there's over 5.5 million people in our country with autism. But what all 5.5 million people have in common is they all have really great, unique traits that nobody else could even do. Like, I still remember all my 6th grade basketball stats, but that's me on the spectrum, man.
A lot of intensity. Where are we as a country, as a world, in number one, our understanding of autism, and where do we need to go?
Compared to where we were 15 years ago, we are in a much better spot, because the awareness is out there. People are very aware of what's going on. As far as like resources go, there are more nonprofits out there. There's more ABA therapies and treatments for individuals with autism, whereas me growing up, I didn't have any of that. But I think the biggest thing today is the acceptance piece. And you know, I know the autism community is very divided on that, because some people say that we have the acceptance, some people like myself think we don't, because you know, the way society looks at us is that you mention the word autism and society immediately thinks of a label. They immediately think of that individual with autism who can't talk, who can't do things for his or herself. But it's more than that. You know, it's advocates like myself, it's advocates like Temple Grandin. It doesn't matter where you're at on the spectrum, you are very unique and you have your own unique talented traits in life.
Stand right next to you.
It's on us to continue to tell these stories. I think it's on us to continue to raise this awareness. And that was my whole reasoning for wanting to do this. But most importantly, kudos to you for sharing your story, for continuing to be an advocate, because we always think it's just us. We always think I have an issue and I'm going to hide my issue because it's just me. Like, it's me dealing with that issue. What you quickly realize is, in sharing your issues and sharing your struggles with the world, is there are millions of other people that are dealing with those same issues.
Over here, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
I want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for coming out here, and thank you for all that you've done with autism, because it's an incredible thing.
No, bro, I should be thanking you, because your understanding of me and how much this means to you, I can't thank you enough.
Learning, here's my guy right here.
All right, Anthony Ayani, let's get it going.
Man, awesome, man. I just wanted to keep you guys aware that this month is Autism Acceptance Month, as well as awareness. Some feel that a lot of people are not aware. So we don't want you to go away this month, right, and not be aware, right, that autism exists. And on many different spectrums, and I was sharing last week. I want to say thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Welcome back to the BluePrint, right? I just thought it was so important just to start out with the autism piece, and I want to thank my godsons from last week, Trevor Archer from last week, being here in person on the show, and I want to thank my my godson Mikey Jiggets, his video, and my wife and I had a moment talking about special needs, particularly special needs kids and adults. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your support last week. Let's keep this awareness. Let's everybody know. If you've seen this and you've seen my interview last week, right, and Jerry Green and his teammate, that there are people with special needs out there, and that there are people, that God has blessed with special situations, and we want to salute special parents. We think the parents of special needs kids are superheroes. Those who support their kids, love their kids, invest in their kids. It's just a powerful thing. And we cannot, we're making you to the point of aware. You become aware. Now we're saying, okay, you got to accept them, and you got to love those individuals. Like I love my godsons, like I love my son Isaiah, who has special needs, born with spina bifida. Most of his life he's been in a wheelchair basketball player. So, yeah, I mean, just, after this month, let us not forget, right, that there are people out there with all kind of little things that are going on. We've been celebrating and making aware. Every month there's something, right? And everybody, let me say this last thing. Everybody needs to be loved, right? Love is the key to all this, right? And I'm happy and excited to be able to bring it to you. And so I want to drop this is my pebble in the pond, is my little basketball. I want to drop it in the pond. I'm expecting a ripple effect of this show, and accept and be aware, right? And that autism exists, right? And they are very gifted people, and so thank you again for your support. And man, let me just say real quick here. Hope you enjoying the weather out there, particularly here in New York. It was like 70 some degrees, and just an awesome day. Hope you got a chance to get out and walk around and spend some time with family. This past weekend, I was invited back to the Albany Patroons. You guys, I played in the CBA back in the day, and I got invited back to the Albany Patroons game on Friday night. It was an awesome time to be able to go back to the Armory in Albany, New York, and got a chance to see my good friend Stoney Oaks, like a brother to me. His grandson was playing in his first game with the Albany Patroons, and I was excited to get. When I heard that, I was even more excited to get back to Albany to see that. And he was wearing my number with the Albany Patroons. It was just a great night. The Patroons won the game. He ended up being, his first game back, ended up being the player of the game, and he had 34 points in that game as well. My wife and I, we had a wonderful time. People coming up to me saying, I was here in the 80s when y'all guys won the championship, man. We loved it. And then see them back supporting the Patroons again, and then bringing their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, man. And it just brought back so many powerful memories. I don't know if my wife wanted to show, I think she had a video that she might have out there. We probably can show it right now before we get rolling here. One of the smallest guys on the floor, Jacquet, was amazing. Right, 34 points, man, in that game. First game with the Albany Patroons, and then he showed out. So it was a great time. I want to say thank you to my man, Rocky. I want to say thank you to my former teammate and coach, Derek Rowland. I want to say thank you to Mike. Man, he's one of the guys with the hotel, the Landing Hotel and Casino. It was a great time. They showed me so much appreciation, And I want to say thank you to everybody, and thanks to my wife for putting all that together. We got a night out, and we got to hang out in the hotel, and we got to come back home on Saturday, and then we had the opportunity of marrying a wonderful couple, Rick and Elizabeth. We got the chance to marry them on yesterday, man. So it was a full weekend, right? And then we're back here at the BluePrint podcast. So let's get rolling. Here, I want to start with my book of the week. All right. The book of the week by Rick Warren, The Purpose-Driven Life. What on earth am I here for? I think that's a question we all asked ourselves. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Why was I born? I mean, my wife and I, we tried to read this book together back when he first came out with the book. It's a daily read. Each day you go for an entire month, and you have to read each chapter. And then there's some questions and things like that. Of course, we didn't really get through it. Right. And at least I tried to read it several times. I tried to give it to my men's group to read several times. And then all of a sudden, one year, right, I decided to read it. Right. And I completed it, and I was able to write out some things that almost like a life plan for myself, and around my relationship with God, my purpose and reason for being here, my assignment that God had for me. And I just kind of mapped all those things out. I think each and every one of us, right, we need to be purpose driven, right? We need to have a plan. I don't care how old you are, right? It's never too late to start to plan, to have a plan for yourself, right? To know what you want to do next week, for an entire month, the next 3 months. What do you see yourself doing, right? The next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. I think you ought to have, you hear me say on here all the time, right, about the importance of having a life plan, having a vision, right? When you have a vision, when you have purpose, you know the direction you want to go in, right? And of course, there's going to be detours, but it's okay because you got a plan. Right. And that's really what the blueprint is all about, is making sure that we have plans, that we have vision for ourselves, that we set goals for ourselves. And this is a very powerful book. Man, if you find yourself to be stuck, right, hard to move forward, right? If you find yourself to be stuck, this is a very powerful book, right? And you need to pick one up, whether it's online, right, Kindle, Barnes and Noble. You need to get this book and start moving forward in your life. And I know the pandemic has slowed us down, caused us to pause, maybe put on hold our goals and dreams. I said it's time to get started again. Let me light that fire tonight. Get started again, right? By starting to read this book, Purpose Driven Life. And then my word of the week, right? You have to be purpose driven, right? You got to know what you want. You got to be purpose driven. You got to get a drive going. You got to get excited, get up and move, right? And, if you're going in the wrong direction, right, turn around and figure out what it is that you would like to do with your life, right? And then become purpose driven, right? That's my words of the week. And then here's my affirmation of the week. My affirmation moment, my Hill and Pierce Hopper affirmation moment. Be strong, but not rude. Be kind, but not weak. Be bold, but not a bully, but don't bully. Be humble, but not shy. Be proud, but not arrogant. Right? That's my affirmation, Hill Harper and Pierce Hopper affirmation moment. And here's my music, right? My music and my movie of the week. I don't know if you guys remember the soundtrack from The Prince of Egypt, the animation movie, right? Kirk Franklin and a number of other people were on this soundtrack. Wonderful soundtrack, hard to find. You can find some songs on YouTube, right? And one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack is "Let My People Go," and then I love animation, so DreamWorks put The Prince of Egypt together, and man, wonderful movie. You know, talking about Moses, right? Moses, if you think about it, Moses was purpose. Once God gave him an assignment, he was purpose driven, right? Once you get that assignment, you got to be purpose driven, and that's my music and my movie of the week. And here's my person of the week, right? Happy birthday, 91 years old, James Earl Jones, one of my all-time favorite actors, an amazing voice. Well, you know, of course, we talk about the Lion King, Mufasa, right? In the Lion King, right? And if I can go way back, there was a movie out called The River Niger, and he used to say, "Yeah, and the River Niger." You know, James Earl had that deep voice. He was just an amazing actor, right? We salute him today. Man, I could watch all James Earl's movie. Of course, he was Darth Vader, right, in Star Wars and many others. You know, Bingo Long, traveling baseball team. You know, just so many of them. Just an amazing actor, man. We salute him today on the BluePrint podcast. And then got a heavenly birthday to my sister Evelina. Man, we truly miss you. We're thankful, man, that we get to see your daughter and her lovely husband, and we get to see your grandchildren. And man, I always get to see, when I see them, man, your granddaughter, man, she looks exactly like you. It's almost scary, right? But I love talking to her, love having conversations with both of them, and just amazing. So happily heavenly birthday. And then to my sister Debbie, you know, God bless you. Happy birthday, right? And I wish you many, many more. And I think we got one more here, right? Oh, my sister Dee Dee, right? That's my wife's lovely sister Dee Dee. Her birthday. Happy birthday, Dee Dee. It was yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before, 4/26, because today is the 28th. But happy birthday. We just got to share a moment with her a few minutes ago before I came down to do the show. So happy birthday, Dee Dee, and many, many more. I mean, I think you guys are heading towards the 60 mark, right? We're getting ready for everybody for 60. My sister, my youngest sister, next year. You know, Dee Dee next year. Boy, they're going to be 60. Man, we're going to be looking forward. We're going to be having a good time celebrating next year. So let's get rolling. I don't think I have anything else, but let's get rolling. I want to bring on my guest for this evening, right? My former teammate, Jan Van Bredikoff, right? And he's feeling a little under the weather, so you got to be a little patient with him. But we were teammates back in the day, right? And man, he's like a basketball player, man. Back in the day, you know, when you got sick, coach didn't really care. Fans didn't really care, right? Your job was to get on that floor and play, right? And so Jan was spent his time in urgent care, but he's made it home to be on the podcast tonight. So please be patient. Jan, welcome to the BluePrint podcast.
I'm glad to be here, Lois. I was under the weather. I remember Michael Jordan had a great game when everybody said he was sick, and I think it was against Utah, and he had this great game, and everybody said, wow, you know, it pays to be sick. So maybe I can have a great interview here being sick, and you'll bring out the best of me.
Yeah, that's the flu game where they carried him to the bench, carried him out the bus, carried him in the locker room, carried him to the bench, man, and then he scored like, well, I don't know, 40-something points. See, yeah, we're going to have that kind of interview. That'd be awesome. Oh, man. Yeah. So Jan, man, you know, it's crazy. Let me just say this, how crazy God works, right? So I have to kind of tell you this, you know, many of you, I guess if you go way back, I had Earl Tatum on the show, My good friend Earl Tatum played with at Mount Vernon High School, played for Marquette University, and ended up getting drafted by the Lakers, played for the Celtics, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Earl had that sweet jump shot. And I also had Rudy Hackett on the show at the same time. He was out in California, and I had both of them on. So Jan is calling around, right? Jan is calling around, and somehow he got in touch with Earl, and Earl called me. I think Jan was looking for Rudy, and they started talking about other players, and then they mentioned my name, and then Jan said, "Yeah, I know Lowe's, man. We played together, and so Jan and I got in touch, and we talked for a while on the other day, man. Then I invited him to the BluePrint, and want to talk a little bit about his journey, right? The journey of Jan Van
talk about
Brederkoff.
the Mount Vernon Five. I mean, to think of all those guys that came out of Mount Vernon and went to the NBA is just absolutely incredible. And like you mentioned, you and Earl and Rudy, but then we had the Williams brothers, Ray and Gus.
Yeah.
And I ended up playing with Ray and you and Rudy all with the Nets. So
Yeah,
was blessed to play with three of you guys, and played against Earl when he was at Marquette and I was at Vanderbilt in the Sweet 16 games. So there's an awful lot of overlap as we get older. We can't believe how many people are in that same fraternity.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit, man. I mean, because sometimes people just hear basketball, right? Oh, basketball. And so the fraternity starts, this game that we love, becomes a fraternity. It becomes more than that we were just basketball players, or we become like a family, right? And, talk about that and your experience in basketball and how you stay with, because some of us we got a small group we stay connected with, right? And then we got a larger group. We know there's a larger group. And then we got the history of it. You got the history of the game. We grew up watching it. We grew up playing with people. So talk a little bit about you mentioned fraternity, but talk about the basketball fraternity.
Well, I think, I grew up in basketball because my father was a coach. So when I was a kid, I was going to his games. He was coaching college all the way through my freshman year. And then my sophomore year, he got the job with being the coach of the Lakers. So we move out to Los Angeles, and there he is. He's coaching the first year, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor. And the next year is Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and then added Will Chamberlain to the mix. So, I was like right there on the, almost a courtside seat watching the greatest players. There's 3 Hall of Fame players there. So I was kind of, learned a lot about basketball just, being there. And then I was fortunate enough to go to Vanderbilt and then play on the collegiate level. And we had success each year and got better and better. As you can see that picture, I used to be really skinny. Like George Gervin and I were the exact same age, and we were both the 2 skinniest people in the league. It just happened to be that he was just a lot better at being skinny and was a tremendous shooter and scorer. But like you said, you get to know people differently, whether it's on trips or you get traded to another team. But there seems to be a fraternity from when we played, because we didn't make that much money. And, we were struggling all the time to stay in the league or to get better or have our team win. Now you see that the NBA and guys that come off the bench are making more than the very best player that ever played during our era. So I think there's a certain camaraderie and fraternity because, we played when there was just the love of the game. Now, yes, we did get paid and we got a decent salary, but, there's that love of the game and camaraderie and winning was so important. Now it seems like with the NIL infiltrating into college, they're getting paid in college. And, there's that more me mentality. And then when you're in the NBA, guys are, promoting themselves or having people promote them, and the team is not nearly as functional as it was back when we played.
Yeah, I mean, and one time I was telling somebody the other day. I think when we were at the wedding, I was telling somebody the other day when I went back to West Virginia, right? And I told them the story. Like they built a new $35 million practice facility at West Virginia, and so I walk in, and I mean it's all like Las Vegas. It's like all the special stuff. Game rooms. Snack rooms. I mean, everything you could, weight room. I mean, everything you could think about. Gym, the size of the same thing as in the Coliseum. And so they take me into the locker room. As I go in the locker room, there's on the wall, there's all the jerseys of the former players, right? And I'm walking by, I see my jersey, so forth, and I come in. And then my wife said, water therapy, water therapy, all that stuff. And so you can 24-hour a day, you had access to the gym, to the practice facility, 24 hours. Just put your card in and go in. So I walk in, and there's a couple of players there, right? And I look in there, they got lounge chairs, people laid back in lounge chairs. They got a hologram of a picture of themselves in the locker, right? And I mean, leather seats, I mean, cushion and stuff. And so I said to the guys, I was like, when they turned around, they said, hey, this Lowe's Moore used to go to here, like that. And I said, I don't know, it just came over me. I said, say thank you to me, right? That's what, because I was thinking, like, there was no carpet on the floor, right? Nope. We had the wooden box on the floor that you would unlock yourself, and you were in a cage, right? So we had no frills. It was called no frills basketball, right? And then these guys now have access to all these things, and guys like myself, you, and all the guys in the past, right, made that happen. Because if we didn't go to those institutions and went on to play hard and be successful and play through pain, right, injury, all that kind of stuff, and now that millions and millions of dollars are being made, right, we didn't see that, right? But I think you're talking about that fraternity of guys that we didn't know that there was more. Right, we didn't know that there was reclining chairs and game rooms and all that kind of stuff. We didn't know. It is just what it was, right? And it was first class for us, but we opened the door for a lot of kids. So I think that's what you're talking about in terms of that fraternity.
Yeah, I think I remember back in the day, my father was coaching, and I remember he had a job, and I think he made $11,000. And he got a job to go from Lafayette to Hofstra, and that was $12,000. So he got a raise of $1,000, and we moved all the way from one school to another because of $1,000. But there were similar schools as far as the same level. And I remember John Havlicek, who was obviously a great one for the Celtics, wanted a raise, and they were. I think he wanted $1,000 or $2,000, and the Celtics were hardballing him. And he said, "Okay, well then I'm going to go try out with the Cleveland Browns as a wide receiver." So when you think of what people did back in the day to just make ends meet, was a lot, and guys were like I said, I think we all have that fraternity because we look at the new wave and say, oh, gee, they're really unbelievable. And then they go, don't you wish you were playing now instead of back then? Because just think how much money you'd make. And I said, yeah, that'd be great making more money, but I'm not good enough to play today. I mean, the level of what these guys can do individually with the ball and create their own shot and get into traffic and negotiate and make unbelievable decisions. I didn't have that ability at all. So, I guess I played at the right time because that was the right climate for me. But today I can't see myself, even thinking about playing pro basketball because the talent level's so good.
Yeah, the talent level is amazing. But they stand on our shoulders. You just keep standing on shoulders until you get what you have today. I mean, you go from you had the opportunity. I want to say this before I say this. You had a very you. I watched Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor on a black and white television. And only maybe on tape delay, and maybe once a week. And that was the same thing for college basketball as well, right?
Right.
But you got, along with your dad, man, you got a chance to in live and in color, right? When you talk about, how old were you when Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Wilt was playing?
Well, it was my sophomore year when he got the job, and so
And you was in high school.
yeah, 16 years old, and we moved there, and they went to the finals against the Boston Celtics, and that's when Russell was winning every year, and they lost in 6 games my sophomore year. So the owner said, "Okay, well, in order for us to beat the Celtics, we got to get one more player," and he went out and got Will Chamberlain, and that was my junior year. So the Lakers have the best record during the season. You get home court advantage, and they go against the Celtics, and both teams won. Held serve at their home court, so It goes 3-3, and Game 7 is back in the fabulous form, as it was called, and everybody expected the Lakers to win because they had the best team, and the game just goes, and the Celtics get ahead, and they led like from start to finish, and then all of a sudden they end up winning by 2 or 3 points. But Will Chamberlain got hurt in the fourth quarter and asked to come out. So while he's out, the Lakers made a run and cut it to 1 with about a little over a minute to go. And then Chamberlain said, "I want to go back in now." And at that stage, it was like, okay, now you break the rhythm and put Wilt back in, or you keep going the way they were. And he made the decision to not put Wilt back in. And at that stage, they end up losing the game. And then that was the end of his career with the Lakers. So he decides to leave and go to Detroit for the next year to coach the Pistons. And at that stage, I had taken a step back from my career as a freshman. I was a good player in Princeton. And then my sophomore and junior, I didn't do much in California. So I didn't want to move to Detroit for my senior and start all over again. So I stayed back, and my senior turned out to be good. But even though I got that ability to see the Lakers play up close, I never went to one of their practices. So I was never around the team. I was just a spectator, just like my mother and sister were.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, I'm looking at it on the TV, and I'm amazed at those guys, right? I'm amazed at those guys, and you are sitting right there. They like walking by you, man. It's like a kid in the candy store, man.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience, that's for sure. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't get to know them, but they were. I liked their team. I liked their players, but at that stage, I was not making my mark in the basketball world as a player. I was just a fan going to the Laker games, and every weekend, I would watch UCLA play basketball on TV, tape delay, Friday and Saturday night. I'd watch that every single time. Dick Enberg was doing the games. They had Jabbar, and I would watch them and I was like a spectator or a fan of basketball through my high school career, basically, until my senior year, when I started to grow and my abilities started to mesh with my height, and I was able to turn out to be a basketball player, whereas I was a fan until then.
Okay. And so talk to me a little bit about what you think back in that time. Talk a little bit about your family. talk about your mom, your dad, and your mom, and your siblings, and what you think they contribute in regards to the importance of family and the importance of education, and maybe around the importance of faith. Talk a little bit about that. Growing up in the household, and the things your parents instilled into you and your sister.
Boy, that was an easy question as far as length, but my answer could be really long. I think that
Okay.
a lot of us end up growing up in dysfunctional families more so than we think. At the time, I didn't think my family was dysfunctional because I didn't have anything to compare it to. But I had three sisters, two that were twins that were 3 years older, and then I had one sister who was a year behind me. My dad was a basketball coach, and my mom, taught art in school, and we just everybody kind of did their own thing. My father, like I said, coached, and my mother taught, and but we didn't have that family dinner like a lot of families did, and because my father would come home later, and then as far as faith, we didn't have that. It was a family that on Sunday we just what Sundays sports day. There's always something on TV, whether it's a basketball game, football, baseball, or it's tennis or golf. It was always about sports. So I went through my entire high school not knowing really who God was or the importance. And when I look back, it was a dysfunctional family. And my father didn't come to my games. My mom came to my games, but really didn't say, oh, you're playing good or you're playing bad. It was just kind of there to support me. So I think it was an unusual family atmosphere. And it wasn't until I got to college that I started to see my teammates and then my wife, who I was engaged to during my junior year and senior year. And then I started to see what the world was about. And then I started to have a different perspective. So I was kind of lived in a bubble when I was my first 18 years. And fortunately, I started to see the world through different eyes. And I was appreciative of that. But I didn't realize the dysfunctionality or it wasn't a broken home, but it wasn't a comfortable home where, we were supportive of each other.
Yeah. And,
Was that more than you
yeah.
bargained for?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was a little bit more than I bargained for, but it was good though, because, I found out through the blueprint over these last 3 or 4 years, that, there's some people that grow up in some very special home life. Right. And I learned that there are some people that didn't, they grew up in dysfunctional situations, but, they somewhere down the line, either somebody motivated them, somebody inspired them, to move on and find whatever it is, the gifting or purpose that God gave them, or had for them. And they started to aspire to do different things. And they went on to go on to be successful in spite of that, right? In spite of tragedies, issues, all kinds of things. So, so even in my book, From the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, my first chapter talks about family, right? And I was mentioning that some aspects of your family are functional parts and some are dysfunctional, but they're still our family and we still love them. Right. In spite of all that. Right. We still learn to learn to manage to get through it, and that's kind of what what the blueprint is all about. People out there may find themselves to be in your situation and they may be stuck. Right. They may not know even how to handle it. Right. But hearing you speak about it. Right. Maybe, they could either learn a little bit about how to navigate through whatever their experiences at the time, and that they're not the only ones who's going through it or who've gone through it.
I think when I agree with that, and I think at my time, not realizing the dysfunctionality of this or how I was different than the others, my sisters and my mom and dad. I think that I didn't know about God at that particular time, because my mother and father didn't go to church and didn't ever talk about that. But I feel as though, God was in my life because he protected me from their way of life and the way they did things. And also, he protected me for not being bitter or not being resentful. So even though things, I didn't get favor like my sisters did or whatever, I didn't have bitterness. I didn't have hatred. I just, tried to do what I thought was right, become as good a son as I could be and brother, and then as good as I could be in sports and academics. But the one positive thing I can say about my father, and I tell that to students that I'm teaching now who seem that think education is not as important, is that I got all good grades all through eighth grade, like most people do. And then you get in high school and it gets a lot harder when you start writing essays and everything else. And so my freshman year, first quarter at going to Princeton High School, which is a really good high school, I ended up coming back at the end of the first quarter and I think I got one or two B's and C's and one D. And I had all A's and B's up until this point. And my parents never asked me about homework because I always got A's and B's and had no problems. So my sisters come home and they get good grades and they start bragging about how good their grades are. And I have a bad report card. I'm like hoping, like, God, would they stop talking so much? Because somewhere along the line, somebody's going to say, oh, well, how are your grades? And sure enough, they did. My father saw my report card. So we lived in an apartment in Princeton. He walks me outside of the apartment by the front door to the side. And I can remember that to this day. And he looked at me and he never said, you're a good basketball player, you're a good kid, you're a good student. Nothing. There was never any good or bad. It was just, and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, these grades are ridiculous. You think you're a basketball player and these grades, you think you're going to play basketball? You're not playing anything. You're not even going to go to college with these grades. And it was short, but it was stark. And it was like I stood straight up. And it was the first time I'd been reprimanded. And I remember it lasted like 3 or 4 minutes, but I don't think I moved for like the next day. I mean, I was just frozen. So the next quarters, I got really good grades. Started getting good grades my second quarter, and then my whole last 2 quarters, I got all A's and B's, and then the rest of my high school and college career, I got all A's and B's. But that little pulling somebody off to the side, that and saying something really helped change my academic direction, and I do appreciate that moment.
Yeah, awesome. And then you go through college, you have a really good career, and so talk about a little bit about the college and into now going into the MBA or ABA MBA.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be at Vanderbilt where we had a really good core group of guys. We all got along well on and off the court. We all played to win. Nobody cared about accolades or points or anything else. And I think that each year we got better and, we blended as a team, but nobody cared who got the credit. So my senior year, we end up getting to be ranked 4th in the country at one time. And at that stage, everybody had different stats, but nobody cared. And I never one time in my entire senior year thought I was going to play professional basketball. I was going to law school. I got good grades. I always wanted to be a lawyer. Never thought I could play at that level because I was so skinny. And all of a sudden at the end of the year, I'm being invited to these different all-star games, to be basically seen by general managers and scouts from the NBA. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, you're going to play. I'm like, I never once thought of it. And as it turned out, it just basically was like that. That, I think you end up, you know, whatever you want to call it, all boats rise with the tide. So we all end up having better years than we thought. And we all end up having one of my teammates got to play for the Pistons for a year, another one 2 years younger got to play for Phoenix Suns for a year. But I think it was that team environment is what made that I was part of. And then I met my wife my junior year, and we got engaged and got married 2 weeks after graduation. And a lot of those players drove all the way up to New Jersey, where she's from, for the wedding. So I think that there were a lot of positive things from my college friends, finding my wife, and now all of a sudden seeing what the world was all about because I was in that bubble my first 18 years.
Yeah. Well, talk a little bit more about your wife, man. How many years has it been now that you guys been married?
I mean, it's going to be in June 2nd, it'll be 50 years.
Woo! 50 years. I mean, this year we
Well,
all.
you want me to bring her on now and you can see and she can extol my virtues?
Yeah. Let me see. Where's your wife at? Let me see.
I bet.
Did I meet her when we was with the Nets?
Yeah, you would.
I did.
Hey,
I
Betty,
did.
she'll be coming here in a second. If she does, it'll give me an opportunity to blow my nose again. Okay, here she is. I'm going to go blow my
Okay.
nose.
Okay.
Some things never change,
All right.
man. And yeah, it seems like you've got a good partner there with you. What did he say that he?
No,
Where did he leave off? Oh,
he
I can
wanted you to
extol his virtue.
his ver. Betty, how you doing?
Mm,
Congratulations on 50 years.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there aren't too many
Me,
witches that make it that long. It's a tough business to stay
yeah,
married
my wife
with
and
all the
I is gonna
traveling
be.
and moving.
Yeah, but you talking about like your junior? You guys are juniors in college when you got engaged. That's
Yep,
that's that's special all by itself.
exactly. It
Wow.
was, and it's been a special journey, and it has been a journey. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I came from a small town in New Jersey. Typical, the opposite of Jan's family. We ate dinner and we went to church and never missed confession. I grew up Catholic, and when I met Jan, I didn't know about his faith background, but he did go to church with me. But it was more like reading black words on white paper. He didn't know what he was saying or doing until I'd say about 6 years ago. He he joined a group of Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and and then we I love listening to these. Like I love Tony Evans, Dr. Tony Evans, and
Mm.
listen to him frequently. And Jan started to really say, "Gee, I really like him." I mean, because he equates every Bible verse to something that we can relate to today. Whether
Right.
it be relationships, daily spiritual warfare, like you say, what is our purpose? God, what is your will for me now? And that's where Jan's at. They say life is four quarters. The
Mm.
first is to educate, the second is fame and fortune, and then I forget the third, but the fourth is giving back. So that Jan's mission is and passion is to pass on values that he had not had instilled in him as a youngster. Had he thinks he'd be in a different place today. So he meets, once a week with these men who have everybody has a story, and
Right.
and, and I can't say the names because they're affluent people, and I don't want to, infringe anybody's personal history. But the more vulnerable people are, the more people open up. You know, you never know what little piece of your story is going to change somebody else's life. And he's just gotten so much from that, and as well as reading the Bible himself, listening to different. We're very careful who we listen to because there's a lot of Judases out there that know the Bible, but
Right,
don't
yeah.
walk the walk. So
Wow,
that's
awesome.
me. I think he's blown his nose. That's enough of me.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
Well,
to see
thank you,
me.
Betty. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah,
No, it's a pleasure seeing you
it's a
again.
pleasure meeting you. Well, it's you as well. It's hard to
Yeah,
believe, but they say 6 degrees of separation. I say it's God's providence. The way
that's
He
right.
connects things is never ceases to amaze me. Okay, nice to
All
meet
right.
you. And here's the man.
No,
Yeah.
she's more important, but I'm back from blowing my nose.
Okay. So check this out, Jan. We're gonna talk a little bit more about basketball, but when I put on the little flyer, I think my wife has a flyer up there, but I don't know. For tonight, I put Jan Van Bredikoff, The Journey, right? And we were having a discussion on yesterday. One of the questions the other day, you asked me a question. You said, well, how long have you known or had a relationship with God? And then I was saying, hey, when I was 14, this happened, and then you started talking about like, so let's talk a little bit about what we talked about in regards to this journey now in terms of how it started with the development of your relationship with God, and now you heard me. My words of the week are purpose driven. How you have become
Right.
purpose driven right now. So let's talk about how you got here to your relationship with God. How did it all happen? And now that you're on this purpose driven place.
Well, that's a great question. Like I said, I'm amazed that people like you that found Jesus when they were teenagers, and then others find it much later on in life. But my case, like I said, when I met my wife, her family was different, and they did go to church. So I started going to church, and I thought I was being a good Christian, living the right way, and going to church, but not really understanding the true purpose of my life or anybody else's life. And so I put the whole time I'm playing pro basketball, it's just all about survival. It's about staying in the league and then all of a sudden going to Italy and then coaching and then trying to keep your job as a coach and, the pressures and of what you deal with, you're constantly consumed with that. And it's basically an obsession to play at that highest level or to coach at that highest level. And then I started, doing clinics and camps and travel teams, etc. But I didn't have any fulfillment. So it was one day I just said, we had moved back to Florida, and I just started thinking about my life. And I said, my life was about me and trying to keep up with the Joneses, keep my job, whether it's playing or coaching. And I really didn't think of other people except for, my days at Vanderbilt, and I had 2 years at Pepperdine where I thought I really lived the right way and started to understand people and being that servant leader. But it was 6 or 7 years ago when we moved back here. One day I just got on my knees and prayed and started crying. And I said, I've missed the meaning of life. I've really, I should be here to help others, not help myself. And from that day forward, like I said, I got baptized then, and then I went ahead and joined this Bible study group that we meet every Monday. And I started reading the Bible, listening to all these different sermons. And now all of a sudden, everything looks so much different now to me. And like I've written 75 chapters on all sorts of different parts of what our life should be about. And my whole platform is serving others. So I really feel blessed that I'm here now. I just wish it was a lot sooner and that I wasn't so narrow minded and, looking at things based on a finite situation. Every game that I played or coached had a finite outcome. You either won or you lost, and you were defined by that, or at least I was defined myself by that. And then I realized life is infinite, it's eternal. And if you start looking at things differently, you don't look at, well, we lost the game and that's bad. Oh, it's a detour, it's a life lesson, it's an opportunity to grow from it. And so I've seen things so much differently. And like I said, I admire you for having the focus and having that heart for so long now. And I feel like I've forgiven myself for not being the type of person, and that was Jesus did that for us. And now I'm here to see what I can do the rest of my life to see if I can make an impact.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. You were talking about when we spoke, you were talking about Denzel Washington and being on TikTok, right? And listening to Denzel talk about his faith, talk about God, talk about his experience and how motivated you were by him. If I can share this with you, because I think that all of us, and I said this to you too, that no parts of your life were in vain, right? And we all were sowing seeds, whether it was the physical seeds of telling or for yourself to get in better shape and to be an example for somebody else. If it was to coach with somebody to tell them they need to eat right, to get sleep and to work on your body, right? To sow those seeds and water them. Right. Same thing with what your father did for you, even though he didn't give you something spiritually, but he gave you something intellectually, right? He sowed a seed in you, and in that moment, he not only planted the seed, but he watered it. When he said to you, "What are you doing?" Right? And you're not gonna play basketball. You're not doing any of those things. That you need to get your education, right? So that you maybe he didn't, what I'm saying, say that he loved you or so forth and so on, but he sowed a seed and watered it, and you went on to accomplish, whatever you accomplished as an athlete and as a student. So none of that is in vain, right? And now God is giving you an opportunity, right? Now you knew what to do physically, you know what to do mentally, right? And now you've gained a relationship, a spiritual relationship with God that now you're willing to go out and share, right? Now you're going to sow seeds and water. And I love it. And we need, because the Bible says the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. We need laborers for the vineyard, right? So this is our time, right. Really at a critical time, when you look all around us, we need people like Jan to be able to share his testimony, to sow back into people, to water those seeds that he sows, and it's going to be powerful. And remember, sometimes we look at time because we function from the place of time, and you look back and say, 50 years of my life I didn't do this, right? But in eternity, right? When you function from eternity, next thing you know, you'll say something to somebody now in eternity, and it will expand, and you will touch more people than you ever touched you would have touched in the 50 years, right? Because that's how God works, right? So I'm saying this to you that, man, yeah, go out there, get the book, do the podcast, meet with people, share it, right, and watch God explode. That's how I feel. And I said that to you the other day. I just think there's an explosion coming on, just the way we met, right? I mean, you didn't wake up on last week and say, I'm gonna talk to Lowe's more, right? And then I'm gonna be on this podcast. Nope, you just woke up and started on a discovery. I'm trying to discover something. I'm researching, and and God put us together, and here we are today. So yeah, I mean, it's powerful, and I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, because, as I got older and I started to say, like, golly, I wish I had done this or I wish I had done that. And I said, it's never too late to start, as everybody said. And, I read an interesting article on Daryl Strawberry, who a lot of older people like you and I know who Daryl Strawberry is. And what an immense talent he was out of California, and Dwight Gooden was out of Tampa, Florida, and they both come to the Mets and just are awesome baseball players. And when it was all said and done, Strawberry got caught up in all the things that some athletes get in, and he had divorce, he had bankruptcy, he had drugs, he was in prison. He went through all of it. And then in his last session, he met his wife and, in a rehab center, and he threw all his trophies away, all his articles away, and he burned them, the articles, and threw the trophies away. And I said, I love that. And somebody said, well, why'd you do that? And he said, because that's not who I am. I'm Daryl Strawberry, normal person, then becomes a pastor. But he didn't want that to be a definitive situation that defined him. And I'm the same way. I got rid of all my articles and all those things the same way, because that's not who I am, and that's not who I want to be identified with. Now, I may have a platform that some others don't have because of that notoriety. People say, oh, I remember you were this and that as a player, but that's not who I look at myself internally.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. That's powerful. And I say old things pass away, and behold, all things become new. Right. And so you becoming new, and I wanted to finish up on that Denzel piece because I don't know if you knew this or not, that when Denzel was a little kid, his mother owned a beauty parlor where you do hair, and a lady was.
I have heard Denzel I've heard those stories, and
right,
just because I've watched
right
everything he does, I watch. And
right, so he I know you know the part where the lady told him that wrote on a piece of paper, and you shall speak to millions. Right. And he took the paper. He still has it actually in his wallet from when he was a little kid.
Wow.
And he pulled it out. He used to pull it out and show it me all the time. This is what she wrote. Right. And so he was asking God, does that mean that he was asking his pastor, does that mean I should be a preacher? Right. And his pastor said, you've been speaking to millions for years. Right. And so now his mother, when he did my show here, he was talking about when his mother said, hey, D, you do a lot of good things, right? And you've done a lot of great things, right? But doing them for God is a difference. And from the point that his mother said that to him, then he started to do, later on in his life, he started to do like where you're at. He started to do things for God. And that's why you see his messages now have totally focused on, what is my purpose, and he's purpose driven about what he's saying in regards to his relationship to God. So you're right on track, man. Yeah, you're right on track.
Yeah, I'm trying to follow you and Denzel. You guys are ahead of me, but I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah, now you're in eternity. You can catch up faster. You can accelerate now.
Yeah. Not only does he say it and he lives it, but he's very, very, assertive in the way he talks and the way he messages. And it's like, he's one of God's vehicles out there helping others. And I love listening to him, and I love who he is, and it's great that you had have a relationship with him and have known him and seen him. So Mount Vernon's is all over the place.
Yeah, yes it is. And so I want to digress for a moment, man, and because those things that you did in the past are very valuable, right? Like your experience and what a little kid like myself was looking at on television, you was there in person, to see. Uh-oh, somebody's preaching over there. And then seeing
what?
Elgin, seeing Elgin Baylor, seeing the great Jerry West, seeing the great Will Chamberlain, seeing Bill Russell and John Havlicek, these guys I grew up on, as a young man, I grew up on those things. Those things are very valuable, so those experiences, man. I mean, you've done something. God blessed you to do something that only a very small percentage of people get to do. Right? You played in the ABA, right? And then
Yep.
you played against some of the greatest players, and you got Dr. J. I mean, I don't know what that was like to go up
Where did
against
you get
Dr.
that
J.
picture? I like that picture.
You like that picture? We were going to send you that picture, right?
Yeah,
You and
please do. Yeah.
and
I talked to him the other day.
oh, you
Um,
did?
yeah, and when you talk about fraternity, Julius has unbelievable popularity and success. And when the ABA folded and we had a dispersal draft, I came to the Nets, and Julius was with the Nets. So I was excited playing him because I always guarded him, and my whole game was defending that good player on the other team, not scoring. I wasn't a scorer at all. And so during that summer before that year, Julius and Al Skinner, who went to Massachusetts also and played for the Nets, they called me up and said, "Hey, you want to play one-on-one, the three of us?" So I don't know, 4 or 5 times we met at some high school and we'd play one-on-one. Whoever scored stayed on. So I got to know him a little bit, but I never had conversation with him. But I know he respected me because he was one of the guys that I had success guarding, not shutting out, but guarding him. So I just, and I know he's a man of strong faith. So I just called somebody and got his number the other day. It's probably about two weeks ago, and I just called him up. He called me back, maybe the next day and starts talking. He goes, "Hey, how you doing?" It was like we had played together for years. We never even played together because he actually got traded to the Sixers before our season started. But we talked for like 45 minutes, and it was the most relaxed conversation about everything. And, that's just like an incredible part of that, like you said, fraternity and respect we had for each other. But he's a tremendous human being, obviously a great player, but, he's got a big heart, and I love him. And I know anybody that knows him feels the same way.
Yeah. And then
We're getting that picture. You're sending that.
and then like Marvin Bonds, right? You
Oh,
got great talent, one an amazing. We didn't get really to see Marvin. He wasn't around, for a long period of time, but he was just a tremendous talent. You were in the ABA. That was one of those upstart leagues, man, that had so many great players in it. And then, like you said, you went on to be a Nets. We played together. I think I played with you in 1980, right? I was drafted by the Nets, and I think we had a few pictures of some of the guys that played with us back then. We have, I think my wife, we have some pictures from 1980. Yeah,
wow.
This is before 1980. This is when Phil Jackson was playing with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
See, you go Phil over
I see
there.
that. Yeah, and Bernard in the middle. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see
Bernard King. Yeah, and then pictures. You see Bernard is over there. Great team. I think that's Johnson or George Johnson over there. I mean, and Eddie Jordan.
Fast Eddie Jordan and Super
Yes,
John
Eddie Jordan.
Williams.
Super John Williamson. Yeah. I see Mr. Theokas back there, and yeah, man, back there. And then we got Dr. J. Back in the day, some of the players you played with, there go Jan right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you.
Bernard King was like he kind of fell under the radar when you think of great NBA players, and I think when we had him with the Nets, he was such a good player. But then when he went to the Knicks, he just took off with UB Brown as his coach. But I mean, he was one of those fierce competitors that could score on anybody, anytime, and he was much smarter than people thought. People think sometimes scorers just they know how to score, but a lot of times they know how to score because they know the game. And I remember Kevin Durant came come from college. He just was a skinny guy who could shoot, but slowly he started to learn the game and learn about footwork and learned about positioning and playing off the ball, etc. And Bernard was one of those people that learned that really quick in his career. And he was the interesting thing was he ended up living in Franklin Lakes, the same place as we did. So at the end of my career, I'm gonna go over to Italy and play for 2 more years because I wasn't playing much in the NBA. So Bernard called me up and said, "You want to go work out?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "There's this mountain here in Franklin Lakes. It's 1.5 miles up, 1.5 miles back down, and then it's about a 440 around the lake. And you want to run with me?" So I do it. We have a good time. And then all of a sudden we start inviting other players that all lived in that area, whether they were New York Giant football players, Knicks, Nets, and nobody did it more than once because it was a grueling thing. So finally, it was just Bernard and I. And we would go up the mountain, come down, and then we'd hit that 440. And every day I thought I was going to beat him. And he would let me hang in there. And we finally got to about 60, 70 yards away. He'd start to just pull away from me. And I was like, just one day, just let me win. But that's who he was. And that was the best shape I was ever in my life. And he was a great guy and great competitor, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he was, a lot of people don't know he was a strategic thinker. I mean, he probably know things and read defenses before and knew what was happening before it was even happening, right? And that's why you couldn't guard him, man. He knew once he got by his man, he knew the guy was going to help. He knew that guy was going to help. He knew what move he was going to do. It was just, and you used to see him in the lobby before you go out for a game for warm up. And he had no ball, and he was going through all his moves back there. He's in the back going, yeah, oh, right, no, here he come, right, left, and he would just do those little moves in the hallway like he was getting ready for the game. And then when he get in the game, he just explode, Yeah. But 1980, we got me. Was it me? Huh? What'd you say?
I said he asked me one time. You're a smart guy. He goes. What about? He says, how many places are there from where you can score? Like the 5 positions: the baseline, the wing, the top of the key, the wing, and the other baseline. And I don't know. He says. I said, what? 18. He goes, yeah, exactly, 18 or something like that. And he goes, okay, now let's go through each one. What 5 moves can you do from that position? Like shot, fake, drive, jab, step, and go, jab, step, and then crossover. But he had it all broken down. I was like, I was amazed. He's, like I said, he was, a genius before his time. And, like I said, a great offensive player.
Yeah. I'm thinking we're still going through some 80s. Yeah, there we go right there. Yeah, I was there, number 11, Darwin Cook. Yeah, they sent me this picture. Yeah.
You and Darwin came in together.
Yes, we did.
You and Darwin come in together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Roy Sparrow, although he got traded to the Knicks. Yeah. So all these great players, man, we had the opportunity to play with, and play against, and yeah, just some great times, man. I enjoyed that year. I was expecting to be back the next year, and it didn't happen. Look at this scoring leaders. Got Jan right there. It says scoring leaders, Nets,
Well, no,
76ers.
that was Magic's rookie card. So
That was
lo
his
and behold,
card.
I, yeah, that was Magic's rookie card, and lo and behold, there I am on the very end with two icons, and Julius and Magic, and here I am on the side. I don't know how they just put a scrub over there next to him.
Nah, you played hard, Jan. I mean, coach always had you play the toughest guy, and you played hard and you gave it all. You rebound that ball, right? And hey, you put the ball in the basket when you had to, So I enjoyed playing
I got
with
to tell you
man.
one story. I told this when I talked to Dr. J the other day. You know, I played for Kevin Loggery like he did also, and Kevin Loggery was a great guy, and I played for him for 4.5 years, and he never yelled at me. He never got on me. Other coaches, I had played for Larry Brown, and he might have got on me 25 times in the first practice I ever had as a rookie. It was like, gee, I didn't know what being yelled at was like, but Kevin never did. And we're playing at home. We were playing at Rutgers until Brendan Byrne Arena was built. And we're playing the Sixers, and it's a great game back and forth all the way. And here we are ready maybe to beat the Sixers. So we're up 2, and there's probably about 7 or 8 seconds to go. And I think Mo Cheeks drives in, and I was playing Julius, and all of a sudden as he drove in, I started to see that he was going to get to the basket maybe or dish it off. So I kind of leave my man, and he dishes it off to Daryl Dawkins, and I'm under the basket. So I'm going to go up there and block Daryl Dawkins' shot, and we're going to win by 2. And Daryl, not only did he dunk it, he probably took half my arm inside the basket with him. And so he dunks it, and I foul him. He makes the free throw, and we lose by 1. And I always thought I was, blocking shots was one of my fortes. But we're in the locker room afterwards, and Kevin's going over. He doesn't say anything. He's just kind of pacing around for about a minute. And I'm like, oh, my, what's he going to say? And he goes, Jan? And I look up, and I said, Jan, he goes, what were you thinking? And I said, what were you thinking when Daryl Dawkins, who's 300 pounds, puts the ball behind his head and he's going to dunk? Did you think you were going to block it? I said, yeah. And he didn't say any more. And I was like, okay. One time he corrected me. We lost that game, and I'll never forget that one. It was,
Yeah.
But Daryl Dawkins was a man child, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was, man. And those were great times, man. And I'm glad, man, that we got reconnected. And man, talk to me real quickly before we get off here. Got a few more minutes, but talk about there's Jan coaching. We got some pictures of you coaching and stuff like that, and the intensity and all that stuff. Yeah, we got Jan coach. But what you some great coaches? I mean, man, yeah,
it's John Chaney.
Coaches. John Chaney, the man. Yeah, I mean, awesome. And but talk a little bit about before we get off here. What do you look forward to doing? In terms of your journey with now your purpose. Being purpose driven. Talk about some things that you might.
There's the story of the starfish that so many people tell and know. And I'm teaching at another school now, and I tell all the kids about the starfish and try to get them to understand, because, if you look at a place in Florida or a place in California, and like a tsunami comes along and all the water, comes rushing onto the shore, and then it recedes back out to the ocean, and you have thousands of starfish laying in the sand that will not live without oxygen. They have to get back in the water, and they can't crawl back into the ocean. So a man who goes walking on the beach all the time, goes for his walk and he sees a kid down there picking up a starfish and throwing it back in and going to get another starfish and throwing it back in. And he said, there's tens of thousands of starfish here. You can't make a difference. And the kid goes, I did make a difference to that one I just threw back, and I'll make a difference to the other ones I'm going to throw back now. And I think that's what I feel like if I can be in a position that I can help some of the kids, some of the coaches, some teachers, some parents see what their purpose is, what their value is, and how they can start to become disciples and then have disciples underneath them, then I feel like I will have lived a fulfilled life. But, too many of these athletes, too many of these successful people aren't fulfilled when their career is over because all they have is money in the bank and trophies. And, but if they can go out there like a Darryl Strawberry and try to help others, that's what I want to do. And hopefully you and I and others can do the same.
Yeah, and I want you to tell a story about the one of the coaches you mentioned to me the other day that was tough. Was a great coach, but tough on his players and stuff like that. And he found his relationship with God. Talk about what was his coach's name again? Remember he went back and he called all his players.
Oh, Rick Barnes.
Rick
Rick Barnes is a tremendous coach at UT, but he was also at Texas and had Kevin Durant, and he was at Clemson and George Mason and Providence. He's had an incredible career. I think he's won 800 games. But he was a hard charger, and he really pushed his players, which is the old school basketball way that I grew up and you grew up with, coaches being hard on you. And it was all about the wins. And he finally had kind of a coming to Jesus moment with his family, and they were saying like, hey, you want to go to heaven, you got to change the way you're dealing with other people and your players, and you should start being a servant leader and not a person that's like a dictator that's yelling at them. And he took it to heart, and he went around and called every player that he had coached that he thought he handled incorrectly or got on them and maybe called them names, and he went out of his way to make amends with each and every one of them. And I thought that was fantastic. So once I heard that, I started picking the phone up and calling some of my players that I thought I was especially hard on. And in some cases, the player responds and says, no, I was a knucklehead. I needed that. And, but I think we all have to go through that period of time where we reflect and try to, make wrongs rights. And that's what I tried to do. That's what Rick did. And I think we all should do that. And the world will be a better place.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I want to thank you for coming on, Jan. I appreciate it. Even in the midst of your sickness, you did a great job. It was awesome, right?
I know. I have tissues all over the place, and my wife rescued me for a little bit there. Do you have one more time for a little quick story?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Do I have another?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was talking to Earl Tatum the other day, and Marquette guy, and we played Marquette, like I said, in the NCAA tournament. Maurice Lucas was their star player, and Maurice Lucas was, when I saw Marvin Barnes' picture, Maurice played at the Spirits also, and he was a tough guy. And I remember playing against him. I thought he grabbed my jersey, I had his arm away. He just a nuisance the whole time. And then he comes to the Kentucky Colonels where I am, and we become really good friends. And his wife and my wife became best friends. So he comes and plays with us with the Nets. And this big guy that everybody thinks is the enforcer of the league is the toughest guy. And it's getting snowy and it's cold outside. And there's some stray cats out there. And he lived one house down from me. And he goes to Home Depot and he gets a bunch of wood and makes a big dog house and puts carpet in there for these kittens to stay alive. and puts milk in there and tries to save them. I'm like, well, that was like amazing. Here's a guy that most people thought was a bad guy, but inside he had a big heart, and he did right by animals that nobody knew about it other than my wife and I and him. So maybe now a few more people know that Maurice was a great guy and did things for others.
Well, I can tell people that, Maurice may act like a bear,
Right.
but he was really a teddy bear. I mean, he didn't want to really fight, but he put up that persona. He created the brand and the image, and he wanted to be an enforcer for his teammates. He wanted to stand up for his teammates,
Yes.
and he did a great job at it. But deep down inside, like you said, he had a wonderful heart, just an amazing heart, man. So, Jan, thank you for coming on, man. You and your wife, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it. And let's stay in touch. And if you need me in terms of you got to get that book out, right, and you trying to develop the podcast, you got to get on Facebook. You got to get your social media going, right? And I think you're going to get that done too as well. And I'll be praying for you. Look at that. There goes Jan right there, man. Life of Virginia. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you got a lot. You got to have your wife send all these images here. I got to work on that for my new website.
Yeah, we got to do that. We're gonna send you some pictures, man. So you could have them, man. We're gonna send them to you. But thank you again, and
Okay.
I'm gonna close out. Hold on for a second. I'm gonna close out here. Again, I want to say thank you.
Also, you dropped 47. You dropped 47 today. I know. I said you dropped 47 on the 6th.
Oh yeah, because you called me Jalen Brunson.
Little brother. a sweet shooting lefty gets in the lane and makes things happen.
Yeah, so when people look back and see who was Lowe's Moore, he was Jalen Brunson in today's time.
Yeah, there you go.
And here's a funny thing: a guy called me,
and he
didn't
was
call
number
me.
11.
He wore number 11. I
He
wore
wore
number
11.
11. Yep, he wore number
Yes.
11 and he lefty. Yeah, so and so it's interesting. A guy texted me the other day, a good friend of mine named Ed Cheatham, and so he texted me. He said, "Hey man, I thought the memories of Lowe's Moore of the past was still in the past, right?" He said, until I saw Anthony Davis the other day, right? He said, "Yeah, there go Lowe's Moore right there." I was like, "Man, you thought I was like Anthony Davis?" Yeah, because back when I was in high school and stuff like that, I could jump out the gym. I'd be dunking on people and all that kind of stuff like that. And so he thought Anthony Edwards reminded me of me, back in the day. So, but anyway, hold on for a second.
Lefties are number 11.
Yeah. Hold on for a second. Again, thank you guys. Love you. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you for your support of the BluePrint podcast. If you don't mind going to Facebook, Lowe's Moore the BluePrint on Facebook, and like. And then if you don't mind going on to Lowe's Moore the BluePrint on YouTube, and you can like and subscribe. And don't forget, the BluePrint podcast is also on PNN, the Phoenix Network, and also Roku, and also Fire Stick, right? You can find me there as well. Man, God bless you. I look forward to seeing you next week. And I always say, if God allow you to wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. That's from John Wooden. God bless you and good night.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's Moore, the BluePrint podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's Moore and on Facebook at Lowe's Moore Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.
Hang up with coverage that will knock you out. Try March